Hello everybody and welcome back to Video Game Therapy, where I talk about stuff. So I was doing one of my, this one's kind of exciting for today. I was doing one of my thought experiments, and there's this thing that's been on my mind for like a really long time now, and I've only just named it maybe a month or two ago, not even, but today I feel like I could finally explain it. And that is the concept of time travel. Now, it sounds kind of silly, and I kind of want to make the title something a little clickbaity, but I explained it to this imaginary person in my head, and the explanation was so good. You know, everything's perfect in our own heads, so I'm going to try to do my best I can to replicate it. But essentially, I think the concept first kind of started in my mind after seeing a movie. It's called About Time, and essentially the main character can literally time travel. And at the end of the movie, it's not really a spoiler, but he kind of says, you know, eventually I would live each day twice. The first day I would see what happens, and the second day I would, you know, just have fun with it. At the end, he was like, you know, now I live each day. I don't time travel at all. I simply wake up each day as if I came back to live it. And so it's all based on this concept of coming back as if you were going to relive something. And there's two ways that we can do this. The first way is what I've had on my mind for a while. The second way is what I only just put into words about 10 minutes ago. So the first way that I think we can quote unquote time travel. Now, to preface this a little, I guess in a linguistic or psychological sense, as humans, we have this ability of displacement. I can talk to you about the past, about a different place that's not currently relevant. We can talk about the future. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Not all languages can do that. If any other than human, maybe bees. There's a little discontentment there. I think bees have displacement. Anyway, that aside, the first concept is it's so hard to explain. So it's both of them in a sense are kind of like casting yourself into the future. And oftentimes when we say, oh, I wish I could travel to the past, it might be to change something. But this first one is all about traveling to the past in order to relive something. And it's, you know, we're unable to change it. And the only way that we can really recognize those moments, you know, right now I'm recording Video Game Therapy. This is not necessarily one of those moments. Perhaps, what if I'm talking to a really old friend, right? Or, you know, seeing a friend for the first time in a really long time after COVID or something like that. And I guess there's just a feeling of appreciation. There's this feeling of, oh, I wish this could last forever. There's a feeling of, oh, darn, I don't want this to end. That sort of feeling. That's the first step. If we recognize that, we kind of take a second. And hey, I encourage you to maybe write this down. Give it a shot if you ever feel this in the future. This feeling of, man, I wish this would never end. I wish I could talk to this person forever. I wish I could experience this part of the story forever. I wish I could hang out with my pet forever. So in these moments when we recognize this, maybe you're in a group of friends, right? You're with a group of people and you're thinking, oh man, at the end of high school, maybe you're like, oh man, we're all going to go off to different places. We might not keep in touch. Those kinds of moments, right? And again, it's hard to recognize them. It's almost impossible to recognize them, you know, because we can't literally see into the future. The only time that we have control over is now. We have no control over the past, and the future is entirely unpredictable. But we can simulate it. That's how I'll put it. So, you found yourself in this moment, right? Take a second. Cast yourself into the future. It could be one day. I encourage you to try and make it much more beyond that. If it's something you're really looking forward to, I guess that's the example that I was doing a thought experiment with. It was something I've been really looking forward to. I have no idea if this is ever going to happen, but it's something I really look forward to, and I want to make sure that when that moment comes, I make the most of it. And one of the ways we can do that is by essentially imagining or pretending that we have traveled back in time precisely to relive that moment. I'm going to go off a bit on this a bit more. There's no easy way to do this. It's totally a frame of mind sort of thing. I thought I was going to hit that portal. You're in this moment, cast yourself to the future, and, you know, picture yourself whatever predicament you might be in. It really could be anything. I don't want to give examples because I don't want to limit you. In this scenario, it has to do with seeing a friend, and maybe I never get the chance to see them. And, you know, I'm in, you know, some office working, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could go relive this moment. Try and take yourself out of the present, putting yourself into this potentially more sad, more depressing, to use the term loosely, moment, and then open your eyes again, and then come back to the present moment. I guess what I'm saying is, imagine what you'll feel like when it's over. Imagine what you'll feel like when when we are way beyond over. You know, this is gonna be a very superficial example, but when I first hit 1,000 subscribers on my lifestyle channel, I knew that the growth was gonna stop, and now it has. And so I would try to cast myself forward into that future and say, okay, you know, this growth is I'm not gonna be gaining hundreds of subscribers a week, or getting, you know, 10,000 views on a single day. It's gonna eventually stop, and then I come back and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this is really exciting, because I don't have an explanation for it. The only thing I can really think of is, as things are happening, we get used to them. And we get used to them 5 seconds in, 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, whatever it is. Have you ever clicked on a video and you've gotten 3 minutes in and then you clicked away? It's because the exhilaration's over. It's become normal again. Anyway, so that's the first kind of concept about time travel. Oh, this is very cool. I'm saving this one. That's the first kind of concept of time travel that I want to reference, that I want you to attempt to experience. Perhaps, no, that kind of leads into number 2. It really could be, excuse me, it could be anything. And when, you know, in this mini thought experiment I was doing, the times that I would think back to, you know, when I would recognize these moments, it all came down to moments where I felt like, oh, I wish this doesn't end. Moments where I felt a connection with a person or a thing. Obviously, those would be 2 different connections, but they're still meaningful. And again, it's pretty much impossible to recognize them, but if we recognize our own patterns of behavior, we can recognize them. So, for example, when my grandfather passed away, this was a few summers ago. I remember, so I was working at a summer camp, and my dad said, hey, it was between sessions of work. He was like, I know you only have like 36 hours or whatever, but do you want to, we can drive up, see your grandfather? And I was like, I initially said no. And then one of my oldest quotes came back to me, and it was, you will always regret the actions you do not take more than those that you do. And I said, okay, yeah, you know what? I'd rather go see him and, you know, be incredibly tired at work, you know, whenever we pick up again in a few days, than he passes away and I never got to, you know, see him again. And he did pass away not too long after, and I was grateful that I had made that decision. And it's those kinds of moments when, because I remember when I was sort of talking to him, when I saw him at least, it's that kind of moment where I wish I thought, or I wish I, not really wish, because I it's not like I want to go back and change it, but it's that kind of moment where I would have now been like, okay, close your eyes, cast yourself into the future, imagine your life without this, and then come back. Come back as if you've chosen to relive this moment. Now, the best part about this is that, at least in my opinion, one of the best things about it is that we accept the fact that there is nothing we can change. For example, you're spending the day with someone, right? Perhaps it's a friend you haven't seen since high school or whatever it might be. Well, I guess in my case, a childhood friend, whatever. You moved You get the example. Someone you haven't seen for a long time. Excuse me. And you have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. There might come a moment where you're like, oh, I wish I could go back and change that. But with this idea, this first theory of time travel, sounds so funny. I like to call it time travel because that's what it feels like. You accept that you don't know what's going to happen and therefore you won't change anything. It is simply about reliving what you have, about coming back as if you were reliving what you've already lived. It's reliving, not changing. It's re-experiencing, not modifying. I hope that makes sense. So that's the first thing. The first thing is when you find yourself appreciative of a moment or thinking to yourself, man, I wish this would never end. Man, I wish I could talk to this person forever. Man, I wish, this summer camp lasted for so long. Close your eyes, cast yourself ahead without it, and then come back and take that next step as if you've come back specifically to relive this moment, for appreciation for everything that's happening in the moment. Now, that's the first theory. Whoa, this one's kind of cool. This one's very gloomy, but very cool. The second theory, hold on. It's going to take me a second to think about this. Uh-oh, what was it? It was more about, oh, yes. Okay. At least I remember the image I was quote unquote explaining to this person in my mind. The second theory is about changing our future. So in my first example, in the first theory, so to speak, it was all about recognizing moments where we think, oh, I wish this would never end. Oh, I wish, this could last forever, whatever it might be. This one is all about when we feel fear, recognizing when we're scared to do something, recognizing when we feel we might regret something, recognizing when we feel bad about not doing something. And the very basic example that came up in my head was, as a kid, I used to be very scared about going off the diving board at the pool. I feel like this is a very basic example that I feel like a lot of people can at least maybe not exactly relate to, but at least can empathize with to a point where they can understand what, use this example as me explaining what I'm talking about. So you're going on a diving board, you get to the end of the diving board, you look down, the water's deep, you don't want to bounce high, and you get scared and your breath quickens, whatever, and you walk away. You say, no, I can't do this. Whatever it is, you're scared. Whatever it is, you don't want to get hurt. First of all, that's fine. Fear exists for a reason. Pushing ourselves out of the comfort zone is also a good thing, but it's important to recognize when we should and should not do something. It's one thing to jump off a diving board. It's one thing to jump off a rock 60 feet in the air into a lake. Yeah, I'll leave that at that. You can take that where you want. But so the second theory is recognizing those moments of fear. It could be, asking someone to lunch or something, or contacting a friend, or speaking to someone who's in your class. I guess it's kind of difficult with Zoom, but hopefully that makes sense. Maybe you want to message someone in your class on a Zoom chat, like, yo, I saw your homework. I think you should offer to share it in class. True story. Say what you think, right? Anyway, it's these moments. Now, this is where it's the same methodology. We project ourselves to the future and then come back. But instead of projecting yourself to a future without it, right, without the moment, wishing you could relive it, project yourself to a future where you didn't do this action. And this is more reliant on time. Time as in being able to understand how we might react in the future. For example, going off the diving board, if that's your first experience like that, and you feel regret the next day or even 5 minutes later, if you've never felt that regret before, you're never going to be able to see it coming. But, I know for me, not having spoken to someone, not having asked to remain in contact with someone, those are the really the main examples that come to my mind, because this is what's most prevalent for me. But I encourage you to think about what things are on your mind. If you're comfortable, I'd love to hear it in the comments below what kind of stuff this resonates with. This is arguably one of the best VGTs in my opinion, just because I've finally been able to articulate this idea. Anyway, so yeah, you cast yourself into the future as if you've done what you've just done, as if you've taken, we'll call it the negative response. It's not really negative, it's just not what you would want. So actually, you know what? I'll take an example from recently. Will I? No, that actually doesn't really apply, does it? We'll keep with the diving board example. So you go off the diving board. For me, you know, maybe I'm comfortable going off the diving board. I don't want to do a flip though. And so you feel comfortable, and then you go off the diving board, and then you don't do the flip. Now cast yourself into the future, the current future, right? The current timeline, so to speak. You've gone off the diving board, you didn't do a flip, even though you really wanted to, because, you know, you didn't want to get hurt, whatever. Valid reasons, of course. You cast yourself in the future. Tomorrow, how are you going to feel tomorrow? Oh man, I really wish I did that flip. For me, you know, this is a true story. I wish I attempted that flip because my diving class is over now. And this was after the diving class was over. I don't think I had the capability to project like this when I was 12. But it was like, oh man, my diving class is over. I really wish I attempted that flip. I kind of regret it. And it's those things that stick with us. So cast yourself in the future. Will this affect you? Well, probably will affect you tomorrow. You know, the small things stick with us. Will it affect you in a year? Maybe in a year, you'll be back in the summer camp, and then you'll be willing to try it again. But the point here is not how you can change the future, but how you can change the present moment. So go into that future and think, okay, tomorrow, it's the last day of class today, and tomorrow I'm going to regret not trying this. Now, the idea here, and again, it's not the actual future, but you've essentially looked into the future, right? And I said this before, but I'm going to say it again, the only time that we can control is right now. The past has happened. The future is entirely unpredictable. However, we can kind of predict our own futures based on our past behavior. This diving board thing, maybe you don't relate with it. You know, maybe something like this would never occur to you. But cast yourself into this future without it. See how you feel. And if you think that, you know, tomorrow you'd think, oh man, I wish I did that flip, then come back to the present moment and say, you know what? I'm going to attempt this flip. The idea here, and for me, I guess, I don't know if, you know, again, it's hard to get over the initial fear, but suppose you still don't do the flip and you get to tomorrow and you feel as if you feel, oh, I didn't do the flip. What unfortunate. Well, you've already sort of prepared yourself for this. You know, it was really hard to do. I was really scared to do it, but I did try it a second time. So you've kind of predicted your future, in a sense. And if you end up doing the flip, you have essentially changed the future. Now, I have this whole thing in my head, how I see reality. Our reality is simply reality. Sorry. Reality is what we perceive it to be. Everyone around me could be robots, whatever. I choose not to believe that because it doesn't make any sense to me. It's also a little lunacy, a little bit of lunacy, but this is, you know, our reality is what we want it to be. So if I, you know, look to tomorrow and say, oh, I'm going to regret not doing that flip off the diving board. I'm going to, you know, regret not saying, hey, want to go to lunch today? Regret not trying to maintain contact with someone. Then that is the future, because I know I will feel that way. Based on my past behavior, I know that if I don't go on a run today, I'm gonna feel bad about tomorrow about not going on a run today, right? It's okay. So I know I'm gonna feel bad, but we come back to the present moment, and again, the present moment is what we have control over. What am I gonna do? Am I going to accept that future? Am I going to accept that timeline? And hey, sometimes you might say, you know what? My leg is hurting. I am going to accept that future. There's not much I can do about it right now. There's not much I choose to do about it right now. I don't want to push my injury. True story. Or you can say, oh, you know, I am going to regret this tomorrow, aren't I? You know what? I'm going to come back, relive this moment, go on that run. One of the most prevalent things that comes to mind for me is, and again, it's hard to get yourself thinking about this in the first place, but if you're going to watch a YouTube video instead of going on a run or something, tomorrow and you regret it, you can, right now, you can go on that run. You can control what you do right now. And by using this human ability of foresight, of our own foresight, we can kind of predict how we feel. We can use past behavior to guess how we're going to feel in the future. And that is my second theory, how we can essentially change, not the past, but the now. How we can change our future, right? So again, to sum that up, when there's a moment where we feel regret or something, or we feel as though, oh, I wish I could do this, cast yourself ahead to tomorrow, to the next week, to a year from now. Whatever this, a diving board, you wouldn't cast yourself a year from now. Talking to someone who is in your class, who you're good friends with, that you don't have contact with, and regretting never asking them to maintain contact or giving them contact information, cast ahead in a year from now. That is the future. You've glimpsed into the future. And then you are time traveling back to the present. Hopefully this isn't just a bunch of random stuff, but this is something I want to practice a lot more in the coming days, weeks, and months, and I've finally been able to articulate it. So I really hope you got something out of it too. In essence, it's all about trying to live a more meaningful life, trying to make the most of this short time that we have. Fixing my watch, I'm gonna crash, but yeah, the first one is when you feel like you're in a moment that you want to last forever, or that you feel really great about, cast yourself ahead without it. Cast yourself to a time where it's ended, and then come back again to really appreciate. Come back as if you've come back solely to relive that moment. The second theory is if you feel regret, or if you feel as if your lack of inaction is something you're going to frown upon later, cast yourself into the future. How are you going to feel? Come back to it. If it involves other people or other things that are out of your control, ask yourself, if thing one happens or thing two happens, of course, the only example I can think of is, asking or telling someone you like them, right? It just seems like such a relatable example, I feel like. Are you gonna, it's just not devastating enough. The negative answer is just not devastating enough, because if they say no, it's like, okay. Well, anyway, wish I could think of a more prevalent example. I don't know, doing a flip off the diving board. Best case scenario, you do it successfully. Worst case scenario, you land on your back and you get out of the pool or the lake or whatever, and you're like, oh. Is that, is the worst case scenario, does that outweigh the what if that you might think tomorrow? That's the second theory. That's what I want you to take out of it. You're in the moment. Shoot, I'm just gonna go on YouTube instead of going on this run. Tomorrow, how are you going to feel about that decision? Yesterday you said tomorrow, blah, 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 Shia LaBeouf. Cast yourself ahead, see what you think, and then come back and do it, or don't do it. It's time travel. It works it works how you want it to. So yeah, that's enough from me. That felt oddly articulate, but again was probably verbose. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you did come across this one, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you think it's valuable, I'd love for you to share this. This is the only VGT, so far at least, that I feel like I would be totally fine with anyone coming across this. Because it's such, it feels like such a powerful concept. Because it throws away, you don't have to worry about the past with it. And most importantly, it focuses on what you can do now. And it uses what we can do as humans of casting ourselves to the future and then coming back again. So you're creating your future and then coming back again. It's like my snapping concept, but better. And I haven't snapped in over a year now. Maybe if you want to hear more about the snapping concept, let me know. But it's not the greatest thing. I think it helped me for a while, but it was more of an ignorant thing than anyway. That's it. So again, thanks so much for watching and or listening. I do hope you got something out of it. Love to hear thoughts in the comments below. I think I'm going to keep it up with Cowdino. Someone in the comments on another Pokemon video reminded me that, an audience doesn't have to be for a game. But if I just make, my consistent commentary, Good. So have a good one. And as always, don't forget to stay awesome. Peace out.